If you're following the electric transportation sector at all, the last few months, I guess 2021 has seen many, many innovations and announcements. Well, there's a conference coming up organized by CUTRIC to talk about e-transit and all sorts of interesting innovations that are coming down the pipeline, as it were. So we're going to talk to Josipa Petrunic, the CEO, and welcome to the interview, Josipa.
Thank you, Markham, for having me back.
Well, always a pleasure. Now, there's all sorts of things that are going to be discussed at this conference, but I have to tell you, three really caught my attention. And here's number one. This is the big one. The issue of, instead of light rail, like the $3 or $4 billion Green Line in Calgary would be, is it a better system and better use of scarce public dollars to use autonomously linked autonomous buses or all kinds of specially made vehicles. So what's your take? I think that's a fascinating discussion.
It's fascinatingly political. And it's technologically interesting as well. And I say this as a born and raised Calgarian who took a bus plus an LRT plus an LRT plus another bus just to get to high school every day. So the reality is we do need more rail in Canada. There's no doubt. In our big cities, around the Greater Toronto area, around Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, we do need more rail if we want to move people very quickly and compete with their cars. However, not every community and not every part of a large city, even Calgary, justifies rail on day one. And because of the political nature of rail, not just the amount of money, but you have to put track through communities. There's sometimes NIMBYism. There's sometimes the argument that there isn't the ridership and then it's the build it and they will come and then you have a taxpayer fight. Because of all of those layers, rail usually takes a very long time to get built. And you can look at Hamilton, you can look at Toronto, look at Calgary as examples where rail gets delayed over and over and over. And yet you still need to move people. So circa 2021, there are now zero emissions electric buses that are 60-foot articulated long buses. They can have autonomous platoon technology embedded. They can move behind one another in a driverless fashion with the lead vehicle that has a driver. And they can be deployed to semi-dedicated or dedicated laneway. So what do you get? What you get is a one driver-led platoon of autonomous electric buses that are zero emission, that move a lot of people in a rapid fashion without having to build track. And in those communities where you do have the ridership today, but you don't have all the political I's dotted and T's crossed, you can start deploying that system while you figure out whether heavy duty rail is actually going to be funded, deployed, and built. It is something that's available today that was not available 20, 30 years ago when I was in high school. So it is a kind of cool technology. It is new. It's not widely deployed. It's just in piloting phase right now. But Calgary would be a pretty ideal location to test that out.
Well, okay, that's a cool idea, number one. Let's go on to number two, and that is the cybersecurity, because of course, once you've got autonomous buses and everything, they're all linked to the Internet of Things. That's how they get controlled. They have to have sensors and data and all of which is hackable. How much of a problem is this for transit systems?
Cybersecurity, or rather cyber insecurity, is a big problem for transit. It's a problem transit's not aware of. Let's put it that way in general. So it's a big problem because nobody's really dedicated a lot of time and effort to it. So first and foremost, we've launched electric buses. A lot of cities have. Calgary's piloting it. Edmonton's got loads of them. And yet these charging systems and buses are hackable. And so cybersecurity has never been the priority issue day number one. Every manufacturer builds into its chargers or buses a certain amount of cybersecurity protections. But bus manufacturers and charging system manufacturers, they are not the cyber experts of the world. And they have never been the targets of attack in the way that automotive has been, or software firms have been, or where malware has gone to attack and shut down hospitals. But that will change. Lots of people in a sequestered area in mobile communities post-pandemic that are heavily electrified, which means connected to the grid, or autonomized, which means connected to a 5G network. These are sites of potential malicious attack. So what we're trying to do is really elevate the discussion, say transit is a site of potential malicious attack. It may not have happened catastrophically in Canada yet, but it will. And so let us make sure that buses, chargers, LRT tracks, autonomous shuttles, anything you've got in a public mobility mode is built on day one and designed on day one with the most advanced cybersecurity in place. Currently, that's not happening. We're hoping to change that dialogue.
Well, that's a segue into the third cool idea, which is using autonomous shuttles as the first mile, or sorry, first kilometer, last kilometer solution for rail, light rail and subways and so on. You and I have talked about this before, but I gather that there's been more advances since then.
There have been, in Canada in particular, there were lots of small pilots across the country in the last few years, but they really went nowhere, right? They were short, temporary little pilots of shuttles. The two big areas that are starting to emerge, York Region outside of Toronto, specifically in the city of Markham, where York Region Transit has to try to get people from where they live to a GO station or to a rapid transit bus station. And right now there's a lot of cars driving to parking spots that are overfilling with park and ride. Calgary, not dissimilar, Edmonton, not dissimilar. And then the other area is Montreal, same problems. So in those two areas, in Montreal and York Region, the cities are now moving ahead with serious procurement and deployment plans for autonomous shuttles. They've either done pilots in the past, like Montreal, or in York Region, they've learned from everybody else. And their intention is to launch basically smart, small buses that would carry between 6 to 20 people. They would operate on about 2 to 3 kilometer loops, and they would come around to your community, pick you up and get you to the LRT station or the rail station. And the intention there is that it'll be fast enough, nimble enough, and cheap enough that you'll leave your car at home and not drive to park and ride, or ideally not drive to your job. Because we know a lot of people intend to park and ride, but they end up just driving right to work instead. So that's what's happening. It is moving forward, and it's starting to merge with the zero emissions landscape because the federal government announced money. And when you get 2.75 billion for zero emissions buses, and you can call these autonomous shuttles zero emissions buses, well, money moves matters. And so in York Region and Montreal, these are being promoted as zero emissions buses as part of the system.
What kind of a timeline are we talking about? Like, when will we see autonomous shuttles on the street?
Well, we're working with Markham and York Region Transit right now on the project planning, and we expect to have the technical specifications for the vehicles plus the dedicated short range communication units. Those are the DSRC units in industry jargon that go on the traffic lights. They go on the roadside and they communicate with the vehicle so it knows when to speed up, when to turn left, when it's safe to move forward. We expect to have those tech specs done by the end of this year, at the latest Q1 of next year. And then we expect to have the funding tied up within a year. And so we'd be moving to procurement next year for the deployment in either late 2022 or early 2023.
Well, Josipa, your conference runs from the 16th to the 18th. There, you'll be talking about zero emissions buses, both hydrogen fuel cell and electric, as well as renewable gas. So any viewers who are interested in this, they can go to the link that I'll put in the YouTube description and register there. As well, I will probably, and I anticipate that I will be interviewing some of your presenters, and those will be up on our YouTube channel and the Energy Resources Energy Student Resources portal as well. So thank you very much for this, Josipa. Always appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much, Markham.